Rotarians, over the last couple of weeks, it's come to the attention of a number of us that many of us in our daily travails of life hit upon issues with what is turning out to be one of the greatest blessings in life, but also one of the greatest enemies of us, the computer. My mother has solved the issue. She just decides to turn the computer off when it plays up, and funnily enough she goes back a couple of hours later and it works again. I think that's a great idea. But some of the questions that have been asked of us, particularly of our Vice President, although he's community service, and this is a community service spot today, although his background of course is in computing. Have you received an email recently that asked you to click in or on something to verify some details, to update or change those details? Hands up, who's received one of those? Yep. Telstra? Got one from Telstra today? Your bills arrived? The banks? And Adriano will give you some hints and tips on how to avoid falling foul of those. Who of us in the room have received a call at home recently, usually around about dinner time after the second or first glass of red, from the Telstra Technical Department to discuss a virus that has infected your computer? Hands up? Yep. We'll also have a couple of ideas for that. Or have you been browsing on a page quite innocently and going through, and it may be Facebook or it might be a website that you're looking up something, and boom, up pops a message to tell you that you're in deep stuff. If you don't hit this link and right now and click it now, to avoid the troubles that are going to befall you. It's a bit akin to some of those biblical things that used to happen. So there are some of the questions that are being raised, and to help answer those questions, our Vice President Dottore Adriano Cisternino, is going to talk to us in a moment. But towards the end, at question time, people like Milos and others who are somewhat computer savvy will also chime in, and I might even give you some hints and tips about how to get rid of the Telstra help desk from India. So without any further ado, please make welcome our Vice President Adriano Cisternino.
Hi. Yes, this actually eventuated a couple of weeks ago when one of our friends and member just contacted me just before lunch and said, you wouldn't believe it, I've spent 3-4 hours on the phone, I can see you there, just a couple of weeks ago, and with Apple trying to fix a virus on my computer. And I asked him, and I said, how did you know you had a virus? And he said, because a dialogue popped up on my computer from Apple telling me to ring them and fix it. And when I really got immensely worried was when he said, no, because I tried to explain that he had been hacked. And he said, no, but they even got me to go through my phone. So they went right through my phone and got my phone fixed up as well. So I said, okay, they've taken over you completely. So unfortunately, yes, I guess it's the world we live on at the moment, and like most things I say in life, they've got two aspects. They've got a good aspect, and then they've got negatives as well. They've got a negative aspect to it. And this is a little bit what's happening at the moment with all of us getting a bit exploited from the technology perspective. Yes, just touching on a couple of the most common things that we are dealing with. Obviously, we get a lot of spam emails. They're generally not necessarily the end of the world. They're just advertising and trying to sell us something. Or trying to grab some of our information, although generally it's just it's advertising, it's a new form of advertising. My major concern with this and my major advice to everyone here is actually, unlike one of the points there says, obviously, they give you a hint on how you can identify something that is spam. I think most of us do realize it generally, but my concern is, my recommendation to everyone is, I say do not click unsubscribe. So when you get an email, if the email that you're receiving is from a source that you really trust, and you know it's a regular newsletter type email that you're receiving weekly, monthly, whatever, yes, then you're quite safe to unsubscribe, and if you know the source well, and you know it's a realistic email. But if it isn't, if it is the first time, the last thing you want to do is unsubscribe, because by unsubscribing, what you're really doing is you're telling that person who has sent you the spam that that email address works, is valid, you're receiving their email, so now they know they sort of got you into that phishing net that they're casting for multiple reasons over the next few weeks and days, and they'll be targeting you more and more. So ideally, it's best not to unsubscribe to those emails. With phishing, they are really viruses. They're really different way that they can be done. So what they do is they try to trick you into believing that it's a realistic email. It's just that they're burling, they're casting a big net out there. They are relying on the fact that if they send an email marketed as an ANZ email, 30% of the public who are going to receive that email, chances are they're going to be with ANZ, and so they will grab that market as a realistic market, and then even if it's only 1% of that 30% that clicks a link, if the email had gone out to 10 million people, they're going to still get quite a few people potentially in their net. These emails are really very well constructed. What they do is they pick up a regular email. Generally what they do is they wait for ANZ to send an email to real customer, or whether it's ANZ, Westpac, whatever bank, and then they restructure the email exactly in the same way as they have received the original one from the bank, and then they just change the links in those emails. Obviously, a lot of banks have already told us they don't send us email, and a lot of company, my suggestion is anything that you deal with online, do not use the email as links to get to wherever you need to get. You know that there has been an email. If you want to know if that email is really realistic, you can just log in, you can just open up your browser, you navigate with your usual favorites to the website that you want to go to, and once you are within that website, that's when you will probably find the communication from the bank will be sitting into a little alert in your online banking with a note saying there is a message for you. That's how the bank communicate with us. They won't send us an email because they understand themselves that there is this problem out there and they don't want to mix with that problem right now or emphasize it. But there are little simple tricks that you can also see. Sometimes it's quite interesting. We can't just overlook them because, for example, PayPal, sometimes if you are handling multiple accounts, they do send us realistic emails where they want you to act upon certain things, whether it is a bill that you have received a payment from a client, or whether a bill that you have paid to somebody. And so the simple trick with that is just to move your mouse over the top of the link without clicking the link. You just go over the top. And what your email client will do, whether it is Outlook or whatever mail on Mac, is it will give you a pop-up which will show the link that you'll be navigating to if you click the button. So by just hovering over the top of the link, you will see if the link matches, if it is exactly the same content, what is reading to what is doing. And this is a typical example, another one, for example, with DocuSign. You've received an important document. It could be a Dropbox that somebody might have shared with you, and I'll touch into that in a minute as well, why somebody has shared it with you. But you've got a typical document, you've got a button. If you hover over the top of that button where it says Review Documents, you'll get that pop-up which will show you the link. And so what you probably find is that beginning part of that link, they go through a bit of work. They try to repeat for example, ANZ.com, but ANZ.com or DocuSign.com might be sitting into a longer domain, which is DocuSign blah, A, B, C. There is an extra word, there is an extra something, which they've been able to register that domain and then direct it to where they want it. Now, the dangerous part with these emails, that's another example here with the Telstra one, same thing with the links. So the dangerous part we've got with these emails is that when you click those links, they open up a web page which can run a script, a JavaScript. And that JavaScript, it's an actual application that will run on your computer, and that will install potentially an application on your computer without you realizing it, and automatically then you've been infected, your computer has been infected. That's one way of doing it. Another way that they do it, and that some of the biggest hacking has been done through PDF files, where they've been able to actually embed a virus right into a PDF. And some of these things have been actually organized by big government organization or big corporate environment companies, private companies, that want to gain some competitive advantage onto the competition. So they go out there and buy, pay big dollars to company to develop the virus, to navigate into a PDF document as a part of that document, which is a realistic document, so that then can install that onto the receiver's computer, that information, and then they can take over the computer, then they're in the network of their competitor, and they can go in and gain that competitive advantage. So they're quite sophisticated, and millions of dollars are spent to develop these softwares. So this is not just somebody in a backyard doing it. This is how it originates, and then somebody gets sold of the application. Once it has been paid by the big organization, then it becomes easily available for somebody else to use for other purposes. So we need to be really, really careful about any attachment that we receive, unless we really trust the source that is coming from and that we're really confident in terms of opening. Of course, we need to have antiviruses, and we need to have solutions, latest OSs, and I'll touch that in a minute, will allow us to help us on avoiding these kind of things. This is another thing that happens. You get a dialogue like this, as we were saying before. You click a button, it tells you you've been infected, or you need to act again. You click the button, that's when you are actually going to be infected, is once you click the button. So that button is not going to save you, that button is going to infect you if you click it. So we need to be really, really careful. So we've gone through these things, and how do we protect ourselves going forward? How do we make sure that our experience online is as safe as possible? My very first advice I'm going to give everyone is, realistically, you need to have the latest version of the operative systems. That's a very fundamental base and most important thing. So right now on Windows, it's Windows 10. So even Windows 7 is still supported at the moment, Windows 8, they're still old, they're already old. In terms of how they're going to fight some of the latest things that are going to come up, they're not going to be as efficient at fighting them as the very latest OSs. So everyone should be on the absolute latest OSs, in particular if you're doing anything that is going to be crucial or important, fundamental, like internet banking. The next thing is antiviruses. Yes, they help. They help in many other ways. They help filtering your phishing emails. They help you pick up some of these links if somebody else, because chances are, the way these antiviruses work is they rely on the fact that you are not going to be the first one who receives that particular email or is exposed to that particular threat. So if somebody else is exposed, it will be mentioned, they're going to ring their antivirus company and tell them, I got infected from this. Why did I get infected even though I'm paying you $100 per year? And the company will be aware of that, and so they will react quickly. They will work out what kind of infection it was. They will help the customer fix his problem, but then they will also develop the patch and the fix into their antivirus so that you get protected. And there are better and worse antiviruses out there as well. So, I mean, if you want to know what I use, or I'm not going to touch it now, but there is some better product than other. Although, as I said, the absolute best thing to do, first of all, is having the latest operative system behind, because that's going to help you immensely. And then, in terms of receiving emails from friends, for example, which is what I was mentioning before, what we need to be aware of is an email can come to you from me, but if I've been hacked, then that email could have been sent from the virus on my computer to come to all the people that are in my contacts, and it will be realistically seen by everyone as it has been sent by me. And so that's where the potential is. So we're only really as safe opening an email from even one of our friends as far as he was, or this other person sending us the email is on his environment, on his system. So this is where the antivirus we have on our system is really important, because if we've got a good antivirus and a good OS, even though he has been infected, even though we have decided to open it because we feel really safe, we know the person who has sent it to us, then if it was infected, the antivirus will give us that protection and realize when that virus, that application is trying to do what it's trying to do, the antivirus will understand, will pick it up and will stop it before it goes out and open that web page, which will install the JavaScript on our computer. So I think, it's just realistically, you need to have antiviruses. And I'm going to touch on another thing here. The person that had this conversation with me 2 weeks ago said, but I'm on a Mac, and I thought Mac don't get viruses. And I said, the only reason Mac haven't been getting many viruses in the past is because they were a very niche system. And so they weren't targeted by hackers because they were fishing in a much smaller pond. But what has been happening in the last few years is that with the iPhones, which have been a huge success for Apple, a lot of people are going into the Apple ecosystem because of the iPhone. So the iPhone is the first inroad into Apple. Then they realize, okay, I want to have an iPad. Then you realize if I've got a MacBook computer, it can talk with all my ecosystem. Then I get an Apple TV. Then I get, and the list goes on and on. And they hook you up, and then obviously they sell you more and more stuff. But the reality is that because of this, they're growing in the computer world, and they're now, people are realizing as well, that because they are a very simple system to use, and because everyone thinks they're safe, there is a lot of people out there which are more, they've got their protection down. They don't get an antivirus on Mac, they're not concerned about it, so they're actually a much easier market to get in than in the Windows world, where everyone is expecting to be hacked and everyone is running an antivirus. So the Apple world is becoming all of a sudden the best market to do hacking right now. So it's changing. And this connects to the phone aspect as well. And I just want to touch quickly on the phone. Phones are computer at all levels. They are very sophisticated computer these days. They've got their own operative systems. Android is made by Google. iOS is made by Apple. And they can be hacked the same way, but they're much more dangerous in a way than a computer. People feel safer on a phone. They think a phone is a communication tool. Modern smartphones are a full computer plus a communication tool. And what happens is if you get hacked on a phone, people can listen to all your conversation. Imagine you've got your phone next to your bed at night time you're sleeping. If I've hacked into the phone, I can open up your microphone and I can listen to anything that gets said. I can log all of what you do on your phone. So you've got exactly the same situation. So you need to, and as well as a camera. So you need to really be aware of that. And again, the best way to protect against that is the application you install. I think Apple is it's a safer world at the moment from that perspective because you can only get most of the application from the Apple Store. But there is an app that you can install on iPhones as well as Android phones that don't come via the normal Play Store or iTunes. So if you get your application outside those worlds, you are by yourself because realistically, you don't know, they haven't gone through the screening process that Apple or Google have put them through to make sure that they are not an hacking application. And also within the regular application that come through, we would all have noticed that we get constant updates. Every app that we get, there is updates, there is updates. There is updates because somebody has used that app to hack into the phone. So the developers have realized that Apple hadn't noticed that in the first place, or Apple has discovered it 2 weeks after. So they go to the app manufacturer, tell them, they make a fix, the fix comes in. So it's an absolute constant war that we need to be constantly on top. So we need to be able to update our phone. Every app that we run, if there are updates, we need to install them. We need to run them all the time. Similarly to how we do with a computer, even on the phones now we need to be up with that. So I've got here a list of tips that you can see, but we've discussed most of them. So of course, latest OS, operative systems, whether it's Windows or Mac, and update those. Now, some of these things comes with a bit of difficulty because sometimes if you have an old computer, when I say old, 3-4 years old, if you put the latest OS on, it runs slower because that hardware wasn't designed to run the latest OS. So it forces you a little bit to update the hardware as well. But my suggestion is if safety is the concern, the main concern, install the latest system regardless of the hardware and regardless of the fact that it's going to run a bit slower. So it will run slower on a phone, it will run slower on a computer, the latest system, but it's safer, and so we need to do it. And then at some point, if it's too slow, you will be forced to get a new piece of hardware, which is really what the manufacturer wants you to do anyway. And then normal, simple things, so obviously update everything. Be very careful about those links, what I discussed before, so as you go over the top of a link, check it, and just be really wary, don't trust anything that comes through, just put it through a bit of a screening process, and anything that looks remotely suspicious, take it that it's probably an hacking attempt. And it doesn't just work with computer, it works also with normal things. We're getting phone calls. People are trying to selling us things over the phone, and they're telling us that there is a better deal, and they're trying to get our information in different ways. So some of the reason why, for example, with phishing, what they're trying to do is they send us to a website, even if it's not going to install a virus, they've replicated a website that looks like the original website of the company, ANZ Bank, to stay to the same topic. But when you go there, then you think you are on the website. They've actually cloned it. They've done it. It looks identical. So you think you are in the right place. You're not looking at the URL. Then that's what you need to do. Look at the URL to make sure you've landed to www.anz.com. That's it. That's the beginning part. Then / something. If you're not, you're obviously not on the right place. So I will leave it at this stage, and we'll open the floor for some questions. Milos will join me as well to answer, and we'll see where we go from there.
Thank you. Thanks, Adrian. I might start off the questions and ask number 8 on the list of the things to do. I think it was number 7 was change your passwords regularly. What's the story with passwords? Because I as a user, get conflicting advice on passwords. So maybe one of you guys could answer from a cybersecurity perspective.
Strong password and how to create it. Now, many of the sites that ask you to create a password will also assess the password, whether it's strong or not. So you get a green bar if it's really strong. However, for your own benefit, a strong password is at least 8 characters, at least 1 capital, at least 1 special character, and at least 1 number. And it's not a common word. So that's how you create a strong password. And as Adriano pointed out, change it at least twice a year, if not more often. At the university course that I attended, I had to change passwords once every 6 weeks, which was a pain, but I totally understand why it was required.
I'm just going to add something. On this topic of password, I just want to take an opportunity to mention something. We've migrated last week our members area old website into the new website, and I couldn't migrate your passwords. So you now will, if you try to log into the new website for the subscription that will come up from October, or to book an event, your password will not be what it's just been randomly generated, because nobody can see the system we use, the content management system website we use doesn't allow anyone to see the content of your password. So I was able to migrate everything else, your username, your email, all your data, but not the password. So you will have to go through a process of resetting your password, basically, or recovering your password on the new website, not the members area, that's unchanged, the new one. So that you'll go through that.
Thanks. I now know why Milos Novakovic 21 doesn't work when I try and log in. Bastard keeps changing it. David Egan.
Thanks, Peter. And thank you, Adri and Milos. It's wonderful to see 2 Rotarians sharing their vocational talents with us. It's what makes Rotary work. Thank you very much for that. But my question, Adri, is mainly, we know why they're trying to get our money, obviously, but what's their motivation other than that? What is the main motivation for them trying to sort of get our details and everything else? What are they going to get out of it?
There are many motivations. There isn't just one motive. There is many reasons. So I got my servers hacked. I got my server hacked a few times, and then in the end I just moved to a different hosting solution where I don't have to worry about that security aspect. They were getting onto my server. I was actually happy when I discovered why I was getting hacked, because when you discover why, then you know there was a reason, and then you've worked out what the reason is, and then you can protect yourself. Sometimes you don't know why, and that's really a worry because you don't really know what they try to do in there. Generally, for example, they're hacking you from as simple as what I said before. They get your computer to use it to send the viruses to. So what they're doing is if they break into yours, then your email client, without you realizing it, every day is sending emails to your friends with the PDF and the virus. And because they get it from David Egan, I opened the PDF, and then I've installed the virus. So from as simple as that, so it's like a replication of and the diffusion of the virus. But it can be advertising, it can be just understanding what you do. It's just a phishing process. A lot of this, then they develop their own software at the end, which monitors the activity, and it might be looking for things that you do. So they might be looking specific pattern of things to understand that you work in that environment, and then they might be after something else. So they become quite sophisticated. There isn't just one reason, there is many reasons. As simple as kids wanted to get a job. So if they can produce a really good virus and show big company that they've done something that has broken into their security, they will get employed straight away by those companies. So they've got a job, immediate, really high, very high paying job. So it's become like like you used to go to a job interview. Kids now in the IT world, they do a virus to show that they're good at breaking into system securities.
Stay there. The Celtic table, it's not the full Scottish table today, the Celtic table.
Well, it's unusual that the Scottish table is able to ask questions.
That's not fair.
But I've been in hospital and I know I've got a brain and a heart now, so I feel very comfortable. The question is, I get a lot from supposedly Woolworths offering you prizes and all this sort of thing, and Aldi and Coles. I never open them, but it's amazing because I look at the email address and I find it looks to me as though it's a false one. Is that factual or not?
Yeah, look, I think some of them will be again, they use the biggest company because they know that most people, you know, if you're going to use a bank, which one are the bigger banks in Australia? They're going to be the ones that are going to be targeted the most because they're throwing it out there. They're expecting that 50% of people, 40% of people in Australia shop at Woolworths. So, of course, it's realistic that when it comes to you, you trust that it could be a realistic source. And so that's yeah.
I have few personal experiences which I can share. We have received an email from ASIC, apparently, to renew our business name. And my business partner opened that email first and said, I know it's not up for renewing, what do I do? And when I checked that email, it looked totally legit. I would probably open it myself and clicked on that link, but when I double-checked it, as Adriano suggested, to hover over the link and check where it goes, it was phishing. Another one was from Google, also totally legit, which I almost clicked on that one. So you can get them from anywhere, any institution or organization you deal with, it's phishing.
One question was bad enough. Now we've got two questions. Colin.
Yes, Colin.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
You're on.
I've been told that one of the ways you can deal with spam is if you not open the spam email, but right-click, and it comes up with a whole list of menus, and you go down to junk, and you click on junk, and then you say block, and it gets rid of the spam. It doesn't get rid of all of them, but it gets rid of a lot of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, the thing is, people that send spam now, they don't send it from the same source. They understand that you are doing that, and so what they do is the next one will come from a different email address, it will come with a different content, subject content. So, because again, this is where antiviruses are really, really efficient as well. If they are not just an antivirus, if they are a proper total internet security tool, they will obviously get rid of most of that spam because again, they rely on the fact that you won't be the first one to get it. So they realize it's gone out, they lock it, you get the update, so it gets filtered automatically for you. So that's...
Last question, Stephen Noble. Bound to be a good one.
My question's actually a bit of a negative in terms of the fact that we have so much software today to stop all our spam emails and spyware, etc. But there's a negative to that. And I'll just share with you something that happened with us recently. We got a new client, a firm of lawyers for our accounting firm, and we were trying to email them to get further information, and the emails weren't going through. So I spoke to our IT consultant, and then I spoke to the firm and said, "You're not getting my emails, are you?" And it turns out that their their software actually is known to knock out a lot of legitimate emails. And so we alerted the law firm, because if they're not getting our emails and we're going to be a service provider to them, not one of their clients, it probably means a lot of their potential clients aren't getting through as well, because they don't identify them as existing clients. So it is an issue. It's on the other side of the coin, but I'm wondering if you want to make any comment there. I'm also aware of that for our own accounting firm, that our software filters and firewalls may well be knocking out potential communications as well, particularly if there are attachments. If you'd like to comment on that, because it's a negative to business.
Just very quickly, what you need to do, unfortunately, all the spam filters on mail server are getting stronger and stronger because everyone is getting bombarded. So the best way is to talk to those companies and ask them to whitelist your domain or your email addresses so that they will come through and they will get to their intended recipient. That's all they need to do.
We're short of time. We did have that extra thing to do. Two things. One, viruses on antivirus on Mac. I've been a Mac user now since the old Mac 2. Do it, because often my virus collector will come up with a virus that's come on an email from a friend, and so it's just better to get rid of it. Second thing one of the questions we asked is about the telephone calls at night from India, from Telstra. What can we do? Nothing. The buggers have got onto a trick of buying hundreds and hundreds of SIM cards and putting them into machines that dial. I've tried ScamWatch, I've tried the Canberra thing, do not call register. None of that works. Only because you're a guest. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Henry. The other thing that I recommend is to inquire of the caller, do they like sex and do they like travel? Because if they like sex and like travel, there's no other answer than to tell them to go off. On that note, can I just thank Adriano, and can I also thank Milos for today? They're both going to be available to answer any personal questions after the meeting. With these helpful ideas about keeping calm, can I now hand back to our President? But before I do, Adriano, can I please present you with our virtual biro?
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, one other thing. This will be online. Tony Brosnan will put this up on the line with the video, and there's a whole lot of wonderful links there that can help you find out more.